On the day he got married, everyone was on guard against me causing trouble. His brother said with lingering fear, that bootlicker Raylan had better not show up. Don't bring bad luck to the wedding. Iker just smiled and didn't refute. When my father showed up in a crazy state, a look of expected mockery appeared on Iker's face. Raylan really has a lot of tricks. She even sent a madman to make trouble. Where is she? My father looked at him with an apologetic face. Chloe, Raylan has left. Could you return the things she gave you to me? Anyway, it's a bother for you to keep them. Hearing this, the smug look on Iker's face suddenly froze. After a long while, he regained his composure and said, I threw them away long ago. Tell her to drop these petty thoughts. I'm already married. Tell her not to disturb my life anymore. Even if you're going to make up lies, make them more believable. It would be better if she were really dead so that she won't pester me in the future. What he didn't know was that he had got his wish. I, like a sticky plaster, would never appear in his life again. When Iker walked onto the wedding stage, I couldn't help but have my eyes turn red. Subconsciously, I wanted to reach out and gently touch the face of the person I had loved for 18 years, but my hand passed through his cheek and touched nothing. I forgot that I was already dead. Just yesterday, on my way to the wedding, I had a car accident and died despite rescue efforts. Now, I could only float in the air as a soul and watch him marry someone else. The bride hadn't shown up yet. He frowned and looked around as if he was looking for something. His good friend Blake leaned over and asked, Brother Iker, are you looking for Raylan? Raylan was me. I couldn't help but have a glimmer of expectation in my heart. However, Iker frowned tightly and impatiently tugged at his tie. Don't be silly. I'm getting married today. I'm just afraid that she'll come to make trouble again. My heart sank and I couldn't help but cover my lips and smile bitterly. Sure enough, he still hated me as much as before. A guilty look flashed in Blake's eyes and he immediately smiled and patted his chest. Brother Iker, don't worry. Since you're getting married today, I've already informed the guys to keep watch outside. Once that dead bootlicker Raylan shows up, we'll take her away and definitely won't let her get close to your wedding. Iker asked, has she been here? Blake observed his expression and shook his head. No. That's strange. Raylan used to be like a sticky plaster, following you wherever you went. Logically speaking, since you're getting married today, it's impossible for her not to come. However, it's best that she doesn't come. Otherwise, it'll bring bad luck when my sister-in-law sees her. Iker also nodded. But I wondered if it was just my illusion that there was a bit of expectation in his look towards the door. Iker and I were childhood sweethearts. Since we were young, our two families had always joked that they would marry me to Iker as his wife in the future. I had hypoglycemia due to not having breakfast for a long time. It was he who carried me to the hospital on his back and brought me breakfast without fail every day. When my father and mother quarreled and drove me out of the house, it was he who braved the heavy snow in the depth of winter to look for me all night and finally held me and said, Don't cry, Raylan. They don't want you, but I do. Iker was like a ray of light, bursting into my dark life and illuminating everything. Until later, Chloe showed up. All the tenderness that he had given me before was also given to Chloe. I spent a week knitting a scarf. When Chloe said, I like it so much, he gave it to her without hesitation. I was so angry that I rushed to him to argue with him. But he impatiently threw the scarf at my face. It's just a shabby scarf. Is it necessary to be so fussy? Raylan, can't you be as sensible as Chloe? Chloe accidentally circulated my diary that recorded a girl's secret crush in the class. My classmates surrounded me and mocked me, saying that I was a toad dreaming of eating swan meat. I rushed over in tears, just wanting to get my diary back. But he blocked in front of Chloe and pushed me to the ground unceremoniously. Stay away from me from now on. Your affection only makes me feel disgusted. It was like a hammer smashing all a girl's secret feelings to pieces. I froze on the spot, with tears pouring down like rain. Later, Chloe went abroad and he started dating me. Often, he would make a phone call and I would rush over in the heavy rain. Only when I arrived did I find out that he was just making a bet with his cronies about how many minutes it would take me to get there. From the age of 5 to 23, I loved him so much that I lost myself. Almost every day, I wondered what I had done wrong to make him hate me so much. Even half a month ago, he didn't hesitate to break off our engagement in public and said that he was going abroad to find Chloe. But now, I didn't need to think about these things anymore because I was already dead, and he had also got his wish and married Chloe. 3. Now, please welcome the bride. With the energetic voice of the master of ceremonies and Iker's expectant eyes, Chloe walked in wearing a wedding dress. That was the wedding dress that I had once worn in the bridal shop and shown to Iker. What did Iker say at that time? He said that he didn't like big skirts. They were too tacky. But now, when the big skirt was on Chloe, he stared at her without blinking. Only then did I realize that it wasn't that he didn't like big skirts. He simply didn't like me. Iker didn't know what he was thinking. Chloe had already waved her hand in front of him twice before he suddenly came to his senses. He withdrew his gaze from the entrance with a sense of loss. Iker, what are you thinking about? You're so lost in thought? Chloe glared at him dissatisfiedly. Nothing. You look so beautiful that I was mesmerized. Iker smiled, took the ring and held Chloe's hand. For some reason, he tried several times in a row but couldn't put the ring on. Iker's eyes dimmed and he looked absent-minded, frequently looking towards the door. Iker. Chloe raised her voice and stamped her foot. At this time, there was a commotion outside. Iker suddenly raised his head and his dull eyes suddenly lit up. Blake said, "Brother Iker, something's wrong. Raylan's father has come over and he seems to be crazy." My heart suddenly tightened and I just wanted to fly out immediately to see my father. After he divorced my mother, he didn't want anything but me. And now that I was dead, how sad must he be all by himself? But no matter how hard I tried, my soul couldn't leave Iker's side at all. But the next moment, Chloe's anxious voice rang out, "Iker, come back. Where are you going? Today is our wedding day. Where do you want to go?" For some reason, Iker left her behind and rushed out of the door in a hurry. I also flew out after him. The moment I saw my father, tears welled up in my eyes. Even though I was already in a soul state, the position where my heart was supposed to be still hurt uncontrollably. I hadn't seen him for a few days and he was already haggard. His hair, which used to be neatly combed, had turned white. His face was full of wrinkles, his eye sockets were deeply sunken, and his eyes were red and swollen. "Iker, I finally found you." Iker looked relieved and had an expression as if he had expected this. He glanced at my father and then looked behind him, as if he was looking for my figure. "What? Is Raylan playing new tricks again? Knowing that I'm getting married, she deliberately asked you, an old man, to come here and pretend to be crazy." My father's eyes froze. It took him a long time to understand what he said and then tears poured down like rain. "Iker, Raylan can't come. I came here today to ask if you could return the things she gave you to me. I remember there was an album. Anyway, it's a bother for you to keep it. That album was specially made by me, collecting all the photos of Iker and me from childhood to adulthood. Half a month ago, when I got engaged to him, I gave the album to him as an engagement gift in front of everyone." His friends joked one after another, "Brother Iker, this little bootlicker is really infatuated. She can even keep so many photos of you. No wonder she used to write a diary to record her secret crush." But Iker immediately changed his face. Without even looking at it, he threw the album onto the table. When it was time to exchange rings, he suddenly pushed me away and left without a care. He said that he was going abroad to find Chloe. I thought that no one would care about that album except me. But I didn't expect that my father still remembered it. Iker was stunned for a moment. Then he sneered, "What a mess of things. I threw them away long ago. Raylan asked you to come here, right? If she thinks that she can make me change my mind like this, she'd better give up as soon as possible. Even if I weren't marrying Chloe, I wouldn't marry her either. She just makes me feel disgusted." I floated there, feeling as if I had been struck by lightning. My father had been proud for most of his life, but now he could only beg with tears in his eyes and his back bent. "Then could you tell me where you threw the album?" At this time, the door of the auditorium opened again. Chloe hurriedly chased out, holding up her big skirt and took Iker's arm. "Iker, everyone is still waiting for us to exchange rings." Iker smiled at Chloe and threw out a sentence. "I threw it into the trash can downstairs. If you want to look for it, go ahead by yourself. Tell her not to bother me." Then he took Chloe's arm and turned around and left. My father stared at him blankly and murmured, "Iker, don't worry. Raylan won't come to you anymore." Because she's already dead. Iker's steps suddenly stopped. He turned back in disbelief, but my father had already walked away with his back bent. Iker seemed to be trembling. A flash of resentment appeared in Chloe's eyes, but in front of so many guests, she couldn't show any jealous emotions. She pretended to be understanding and said, "Although Raylan used to be a bit unreasonable, we've known each other after all. If she's really dead, let's suspend the wedding for now and go to see her for the last time together." Blake leaned over and said indignantly, "What do you mean really dead? She's such a nuisance. How could she die so easily? This must be her new trick again. Knowing that brother Iker and Chloe are getting married, she came up with such a despicable means to stop your wedding and even dragged her father here to act with her." Iker suddenly came to his senses. The astonishment on his face was replaced by coldness. "Even if she's pretending to be dead, it's what she deserves even if she's really dead. Let's go back. The wedding continues." I couldn't help but smile bitterly. When we were dating, every time he left me because of Chloe, I would threaten to commit suicide. What he didn't know was that this time I was really dead. Looking at my father's receding back, tears streamed down my face. But I could only be dragged by a powerful force and follow Iker back to the wedding scene. It seemed that everything just now was just a small episode. The wedding continued. The bride and groom exchanged rings and toasted. For the whole day, they were immersed in the joy of their new marriage. Iker seemed very happy and drank a lot of wine. In the middle of the night, he suddenly woke up and reached out painfully towards the bedside. "Raylan, quickly give me the stomach medicine. As soon as the words came out, he realized something was wrong. Under the dim bedside lamp, Raylan looked at him with a slightly pale face. Iker, who were you just calling? Iker and I had known each other for 18 years and dated for 5 years. I knew all his likes and dislikes. He had a bad stomach and couldn't drink too much wine, but because of work, he often couldn't avoid it. Every time he had a stomachache, he would make a phone call. Even when I couldn't get a taxi at midnight, I would rush over immediately to bring him medicine. Even his friends couldn't help joking, what a good dog that comes when called and leaves when dismissed. Iker pressed his forehead in annoyance and forced a smile at Raylan. It's okay. I just thought of some annoying people. Go to sleep first. I'll go drink some hot water. He endured the stomachache and went downstairs. He woke up Aunt Zhang and asked her where the painkillers were. Aunt Zhang said, before Miss Raylan left, she specifically told me to put the stomach medicine in the cabinet beside your bed so that you wouldn't have trouble finding it. When Iker went upstairs again to get the medicine, Raylan had already fallen asleep. Looking at her sleeping face, he didn't know what came to his mind that he quietly opened the drawer. After taking the medicine, he sat on the bed, leaning against it and stared blankly for a long time. At breakfast the next day, Aunt Zhang brought a bowl of tremella soup to Iker. Sir, Miss Raylan said that you have a bad stomach. After taking the medicine, you should eat something light and easy to digest for the next meal. Iker's hand holding the spoon paused. Raylan suddenly realized something, took Iker's arm and said apologetically, Iker, did you have a stomachache last night? Why didn't you tell me? I just found out now. You won't blame me, will you? Raylan is so considerate. We're already married and she still cares about you so much. How about I learn to make tremella soup for you in the future? Iker's eyes darkened. No need. Your hands are for designing, not for doing such rough work. Then he said to Aunt Zhang, Chloe and I are already married. Don't mention Raylan in front of me from now on. Chloe smiled and kissed him on the cheek. Honey, you're so nice to me. My studio needs to be decorated recently. Could you? Before she finished speaking, Iker gave her a check for $2 million without hesitation. They leaned affectionately together, looking a dazzlingly matched couple. Actually, a long time ago, when he looked at the photos I took with my camera, he also said, your hands are for taking photos. It doesn't matter if you can't cook. Iker sent Chloe to her studio and then went back to the company. Assistant Lou put the documents that had piled up for a day on his desk. President Iker, these are the documents left by Miss Raylan before. They've all been sorted out. Please have a look. Iker took the documents and looked at them. Suddenly, he raised his eyelids and asked casually, yesterday was my wedding. Did Raylan come to the company to make trouble? Assistant Lou quickly shook his head. No, Miss Raylan resigned a week ago. I've already sent her resignation letter to your email, waiting for your approval. Iker was stunned for a moment and quickly turned on his computer. But his email inbox was empty. Assistant Lou carefully reminded him, President Iker, don't you remember? You've blocked all of Miss Raylan's contact information. Of course, I knew the reason. It was nothing more than that he was going to marry Chloe and was afraid that I would send messages to disturb him again. But I had realized it since he left me at the engagement ceremony and ran away half a month ago. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't compare to Chloe in his eyes. She just had to stand there and do nothing, and he would rush towards her regardless of everything. Besides that resignation letter, I never sent him any other messages. Iker took me out of the blacklist and stared at the resignation letter in a daze for a long time. When Chloe came in carrying a lunchbox, he hurriedly closed the page. But Chloe still saw it. She suppressed the hatred in her eyes and said with a smile, Honey, it was all my fault last night. I didn't know you had a stomachache. I specially cooked seafood porridge for you today. Try it and see how it tastes. Chloe didn't know that Iker was allergic to seafood. In fact, Iker had many allergens. He would be fine if he ate tomatoes and eggs separately, but he would be allergic to scrambled eggs with tomatoes. He was lactose intolerant, allergic to soy products, and couldn't eat mangoes or seafood. When I was with him before, in order to avoid allergens, I had a notebook specially used to record his taste preferences. Later, when he saw it, he frowned and threw it into the trash can, saying, meaningless self-moving. Now, facing the seafood porridge that Chloe handed over, his fingers moved. He couldn't even bear to say the words of refusal and drank all the seafood porridge. In less than 2 hours, he was sent to the hospital for emergency treatment. The doctor called Chloe 18 times before she impatiently rushed over in her high heels. It's so annoying. Why are you urging me? It's just a seafood allergy, not like someone's dead. Are you trying to rush me to my death? However, when she turned around and saw Iker on the bed, she immediately put on a sad expression. She lay beside his bed and cried bitterly, sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know you were allergic to seafood. You're so silly. You clearly knew you couldn't eat it, but why did you try to be brave? Iker forced a smile, you made it yourself. I didn't want to disappoint you. But I knew that when Chloe came in just now, he had already woken up. Chloe came and left in a hurry. Iker stayed in the hospital for 7 days, and she never came again. His friend Blake only came to visit him occasionally. Several times when he was half asleep and half awake, he said painfully, "Raylan. Water, get me some water." The only response he got was the empty ward. He opened his eyes blankly and received a bank consumption bill on his mobile phone screen. It was 200,000. On WeChat Moments, Chloe was showing off her newly bought bag. The background was a noisy bar, and she was wearing heavy makeup and taking a photo with Blake. Iker was just about to click in to take a closer look when he found that the Moments post had been deleted. He was stunned for a long time. He clicked into the chat interface with me and his fingers lingered on it for a long time. Finally, he exited and made a call to Assistant Lou. Find Raylan within 2 hours. But Assistant Lou was also at a loss. President Iker, after Miss Raylan resigned, she went abroad. We can't contact her either. He pursed his lips tightly and looked at his phone. The next morning, Chloe sent a message, "Honey, how's your recovery? I heard from Assistant Lou that you're going to be discharged from the hospital today. Do you want me to pick you up?" 2 minutes later, Blake also sent a similar message. Iker didn't reply to anyone and went to handle the discharge procedures by himself. When paying the bill, he saw my father at the entrance. I hadn't seen him for a few days, and he looked even more haggard than last time. His eyes were dull and lifeless. His hair had turned completely white, and he walked unsteadily. Even with a crutch, he was still trembling. On the 7th day, my father showed up at the hospital. As soon as Iker saw him, he couldn't help frowning. "What are you doing here? Did Raylan ask you to come? Didn't I make it clear at the wedding last time? Tell her not to bother me anymore." However, my father seemed not to hear what he said. He looked at a note and compared it with the room number, and then walked straight past him. The nurse sighed behind him and said, "This old man is so pitiful. Not long ago, his daughter had a car accident and couldn't be rescued. When he rushed over, he had already gone mad and didn't recognize anyone. He comes to the hospital every day, saying that his daughter is still here." Iker seemed to be drenched with a bucket of cold water. He froze on the spot and looked at my father's back in disbelief. His fingers hung beside his legs, trembling constantly. "I heard that his daughter was originally on a business trip abroad and came back this time to attend her ex-boyfriend's wedding." Iker couldn't hear what the nurse said later. He rushed to my father, trembling as he tried to help him. "Uncle, it's not true, right? Raylan isn't dead. She's still alive. These are all her pranks, right? Oh, it's Iker." My father's cloudy eyes gradually focused, and his hoarse voice made me want to cry. I wanted to rush over and hug him as before. But my hand could only pass through his body. "You want to see Raylan? She's at home, at home." Iker's eyes lit up, and he helped my father out of the hospital. Assistant Lou drove them to the downstairs of the apartment where I used to live. Iker forced a smile and said, "Uncle, I knew Raylan must still be alive. She just likes to play pranks." His words stopped abruptly when he saw my portrait in the room. He was stunned, dazed, and couldn't believe it. All kinds of emotions surged up at once. Iker staggered and knelt on the ground. He kept shaking his head, with tears streaming down his face. "It's impossible, impossible. It's fake, it must be fake. Uncle, you and Raylan are lying to me, right? Ask her to come out. Ask her to come out and explain it to me clearly." But my father walked up to him with a box in his hands. "This is..." He frowned, as if it took a lot of effort to remember. "This is Raylan's ashes. She told me before that after she died, she wanted to scatter her ashes into the sea. Raylan also told me before that when we got married in the future, we must go to the seaside for our honeymoon. She had arranged the itinerary and wanted to give you a surprise. Unexpectedly, enough." Iker suddenly roared in a breakdown. My father was startled. The box of ashes in his hand fell to the ground and scattered all over. Iker suddenly crouched on the ground, hunched over, his shoulders shaking violently. He kept sweeping the ashes on the ground with his hands, trying to put them all back into the box. "Sorry, Raylan. I didn't know you would really die. I thought you were just joking like before. I know I'm wrong, Raylan. Please come back, okay? I won't marry Chloe anymore. As long as you come back, I'll divorce her. Raylan, I love you. I don't hate you. I never hated you from the beginning. I just didn't like being teased by them. Sorry, Raylan, I'm wrong. Raylan, come back. Let's get married, okay? I'll never leave you behind again." I floated in the air, watching his extremely sad expression, but my heart was already calm without any fluctuations. So it turns out that he would really be sad if I died. But what's the use of being sad? I'm already dead. Iker held my box of ashes and cried for a long time. When he wasn't paying attention, my father tremblingly got up and went out the door with that piece of paper again. Even though I couldn't get out, I could guess that he went to the hospital again. When it got dark, Iker's eyes finally focused. He looked around the small house for a long time. There were all kinds of things I had when I was alive piled up here, including the photo album that I gave to Iker but he threw away. In each photo, I was grinning at the camera. Iker gently stroked my face in the photo with his thumb, and a hot tear fell. Finally, his eyes fell on my mobile phone. The screen was broken and covered with blood. The password was his birthday. The moment the screen was unlocked, the messages sent by Chloe popped up. The day after tomorrow, Iker will marry me. How about it, Raylan? The man you've loved for 18 years will marry me in the end, right? Come to think of it, I really should thank you for taking care of Iker for so long. If Blake's family hadn't had a problem with capital turnover, how could I have come back to the country with Iker? Are you coming to the wedding? Iker and I have prepared a big gift for you. The time was the day before his wedding. At this time, Assistant Lou's call came in. President Iker, I found out where Miss Raylan is. About 10 days ago, she had a car accident at the Peace Road intersection and died despite rescue efforts. The surveillance showed that the driver who caused the accident was Mr. Blake. Iker didn't listen to what Assistant Lou said later. He hurriedly went downstairs, got into the car, stepped on the accelerator, and drove towards the new house where he and Chloe lived. He was in a rush all the way, staring straight ahead. Although his face was expressionless, I could sense an indescribable anger from him. It was the calm before the storm. Chloe opened the door. She was wearing a silk suspender dress and put her hand on the door frame. You're finally here. I asked Assistant Lou. Iker wasn't supposed to come back today. When she saw Iker, Chloe's face turned ashen. A look of panic flashed across her face, and she quickly reached out to hold Iker's hand. Honey, you're back? Why didn't you tell me? I was planning to go to the hospital to pick you up. Since you're back, come in quickly. Aunt Zhang is on break today. What would you like to eat? I'll make it for you. But Iker threw her hand away. The moment the door closed, he grabbed her neck and pinned her against the wall. Probably because she had never seen such a fierce Iker before, Chloe's expression froze. Honey, what are you doing? You're hurting me. Let go, okay? Iker didn't say a word and tightened his grip. Chloe couldn't breathe and struggled for a while before passing out from suffocation. Iker tied her up tightly and threw her into the bathtub, then turned on the faucet. Amid the sound of splashing water, the doorbell rang. Iker suddenly raised his head, his eyes red, with a bloodthirsty cold light in them, as if he were the king of hell coming from hell. It was Blake who came. When he saw Iker, he was also stunned for a moment. Brother Iker, you've been discharged from the hospital? He put on a friendly look and put his hand on Iker's shoulder. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I could have driven to pick you up, brother. Why are you so wet? Isn't sister-in-law at home? Iker led him in expressionlessly and locked the door behind him. There were sounds of water and struggles coming from the bathroom. Brother Iker, what's that sound? Is there a leak in your bathroom? Why is the water all over the floor? Also, you haven't said a word since you came in just now. What's going on? Is that bootlicker Raylan causing trouble again? Before he could finish his words, Iker grabbed his hair from behind and smashed his head hard against the wall. Everything happened so suddenly that Blake passed out on the spot and was tied up tightly by Iker. Chloe in the bathtub had already stopped breathing. Iker fished her out and threw Blake in. The water was still running. Ignoring Blake's weaker and weaker struggles, Iker went out the door. He drove to the hospital. Before I could recover from Iker's series of actions, I saw him walking towards my father. I subconsciously widened my eyes, rushed towards him, and exclaimed, Iker, let go of my father. Don't lay a hand on him. 13, my body passed through his and I missed. Iker seemed to sense something and turned to look in my direction. Then he turned his head and helped my father out of the hospital. He transferred all his property under his name to my father's name and asked Assistant Lou to arrange the best nursing home for him. He was alone holding that photo album and my box of ashes and got on a cruise ship. The ashes were scattered into the sea was glittering and soon the ashes were swallowed up by the rolling waves. Raylan, I'm sorry. Raylan, I'm coming to find you. After realizing what he was going to do, I subconsciously wanted to reach out to stop him. He jumped and threw himself into the rolling waves. The blue sea swallowed him up. He held the photo album tightly and closed his eyes. The sun shone on the sea and I found that my body was also starting to become transparent. Soon the sea returned to calm. My body turned into specks of starlight in the sunlight. With a blow of the sea breeze, I was blown away. Suddenly, it seemed that I saw Iker standing in the sunlight reaching out his hand to me. It was as if we had gone back to that winter many years ago. He hugged me from behind and took a photo with me in front of the camera. I clenched my fingers and resolutely turned and walked in the other direction. Also on the road where the sun was shining, my father smiled gently and waved to me, Raylan, let's go home. If there is an afterlife, I definitely don't want to meet Iker again. The end.